people tend to think of religion as a constant in human and proto-human existence. However, there's not a lot of archaeological evidence to support that view. For one thing, in order to have religious beliefs, one really has to have the conceptual apparatus for abstract thought. And this probably isn't available to humans or proto-humans until maybe 100 to 50,000 years ago, really. There's not a lot of evidence for that in archaeological record prior to that point, and so it's kind of unlikely that there was any sort of significant religious beliefs prior to that time, for sure. The only manifestations that might be interpreted as having some religious significance during that early period are human and proto-human burials. These aren't necessarily religious, but they do indicate a sort of ceremonial treatment of the dead. Now, the earliest burial that we know of a human or a proto-human was about 100,000 BCE. Anatomically modern human burials, the oldest one that we know of, is about 40,000 BCE. Again, these are burials. They're ceremonial treatments of the dead. They involve staining the bones with red ochre, including artifacts, in some cases cremation, but they don't exhibit any clear-cut evidence of religious significance. The earliest archaeological evidence that we actually have for religion of any organized or systematic fashion is probably the Göbekli Tepe temple, possibly temple anyway. It's a complex on this promontory in southeastern Anatolia, the region in Turkey, and it dates back to about 9130 BCE. The earliest known sort of, or at least quasi-monotheism probably dates back to the 18th Egyptian dynasty, somewhere around 1336 BCE or 1351 BCE. And it was the specific narrowing down of Egyptian polytheism to a single worshipful deity by the Egyptian ruler Abeknaten or Amenhotep IV. The first sort of clear-cut example of monotheism is probably the oldest still practiced religion now, and that's Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism worships an uncreated and benevolent deity called Ahura Mazda. And it might have originally begun as not so much a pure monotheism, but by the 5th century or so BCE, it really did become a monotheism. So what are monotheistic religious beliefs anyway? Monotheism just asserts the existence of one deity and prescribes worship of that deity. And in general, monotheism asserts that there is only one deity. Examples of monotheism include Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, and Zoroastrianism. Some religions assert the existence of one deity, prescribe worship for only that deity, but they don't attempt to deny the existence of other possible deities. So the name for that kind of religious practice is henotheism. And examples of henotheism include the Hellenistic Greek and Roman religions, Hellenistic Judaism, and even Mormonism. Ditheism asserts the existence of two opposing deities and generally prescribes the worship for one deity and the rejection of the other deity. Examples of ditheism occur in early Christianity, for instance, Marcionianism, Catharism, Polycanism, and Gnostic Christianity all seem to have this sort of aspect to them. Early Zoroastrianism, my pronunciation of these is all awful, of course, also seem to have this kind of ditheism in it. course, most early religions were polytheistic in nature. And polytheism asserts the existence of many deities, usually with limited spheres of influence. It prescribes the worships of deities, but the worships of deities is largely determined by need or by affinity. Examples of these include the classic Greco-Roman religions, Hinduism, Syrianism, Aztec religion, the Nordic religions, Celtic religions, and so on. Non-theism, or personal universal development religions, don't assert the existence of deities at all per se, but they prescribe worship through practices, and these practices are meant to improve the individual and or the universal order. Examples of non-theism might include things like Buddhism or even Scientology. Atheism is the name that we normally use to describe beliefs that deny the existence of a worshipful deity and prescribe worship. That is, I don't know, forbid might be too strong, but reject the idea of worship. Agnosticism is a view that asserts that the existence of a worshipful deity is beyond human knowledge. It cannot be established, nor can it be definitively disproved. And in general, agnostics also prescribe worship. They don't necessarily advocate any worship because you can't really tell what exists for you to worship or not worship.